Hello everyone, welcome. I'm Esper. I'm making this video about how to just jump right into Dungeons & Dragons and start playing. I've heard a lot of people say over the years things like, I'm interested in D&D, it looks cool, I've thought about playing, I'm thinking about playing, I'd like to, but, and then there's this long list of excuses. There's a number of different reasons, or common reasons, that people will give, whether they don't know how to play, it seems too complex, they don't know the rules, etc. And it is a complex game, but that's actually what's great about it. Once you get into the swing of it, the complexity and like the layers that it has to it gives it more depth, and it's basically provides an endless amount of enjoyment and storytelling and adventure, and that's great. Yeah, it is complex, but the basics of D&D are very simple to grasp. I'm going to cover that here in this video. This video is aimed at basically anyone who's interested in playing D&D, but it will be a little more focused on the dungeon master side of it, but it really is for everybody. I'm also currently working on a different video that is a tutorial of how to run a D&D game. It's a tutorial walkthrough of a sample adventure that also is geared towards new dungeon masters, DMs as they're called. You can also say GM for game master. That's the more general term. So yeah, the basics of D&D really are not hard to grasp, and you can actually get started playing D&D with a very minimal setup. Technically, you can get started playing for $0. You can get started playing for no money at all. Though it is good to have a little bit of, a little something like the dice, right? You'll want dice. Okay, you want a set of dice, D4, D6, D8, D10. Then there's the tens die, or the decader, which has like the 10, 20, 30, 40. That, when you combine it with a D10, you roll them together, that's a D100, generates a number between 1 through 100. D12, and then the D20. D20 is the main die that you use in the game. The D20 is the die that gets rolled whenever you are attempting something, whenever there's some difficulty, right? There's some amount of difficulty at some task or thing you want to do: climbing a tree, swimming a rushing river, attacking a goblin, any kind of task that presents a difficulty or a challenge. You're rolling that D20, and you hope to roll high. The higher the better. We'll get more into that here in just 1 second. The tactile experience and the classic experience of rolling the dice, you just cannot replace that. So yeah, investing a little bit in some dice. I say investing, you can get some super cheap dice. Just go to like a local gaming store or online. You can find like budget dice and get a set extremely cheap. And you really can't have too many dice. But wait, before I go on, I do want to make just one more note about addressing that sort of analysis paralysis of D&D, where people think about it a lot and they're like, I'd like to play, but I don't know, and it seems complex and I don't understand all the rules. You don't need to know all the rules to play. In fact, it's better just to jump in and kind of fumble around and learn by playing. You're going to enjoy yourself regardless, even when you don't know all the rules and it's a little bit janky and a little bit wonky and you're just kind of making stuff up. It's still enjoyable. You still have a great time, and then you learn as you go and you pick it up, and the learning really never ends. So that's something that you should really keep in mind. It's much better just to jump in and play and have it be imperfect than to just keep thinking about it and analyzing and wishing. And what you might need to do is just get your own group together. If you're like, I'd like to play, but I don't know any groups. Okay, well, you'll probably need to make a group. And I'm not saying you can't find a group. You probably could, but there's nothing wrong at all. In fact, I encourage people just to make their own group. You yourself, be the DM. Talk to a few friends that are curious about the game, or that maybe have played it a little bit, or have seen people playing it online, and just get your own group together. Okay, I'm going to walk you through the basics here. Let me share a window here. Okay. So where should you start? You got your dice. you might get the books, right? That's what a lot of people do. You get the core books, the player's handbook, the monster manual, the dungeon master's guide. That's a great place to start. An alternative to that is there is like a starter set. You could get that, and that's just all in one. It's definitely less expensive. It's pretty cheap, actually. It's a great price. Limited, pared down, but that's a great way to start. Or if you want to just try it without spending any money, just Google D&D basic rules. D&D basic rules. It's here on the Wizards of the Coast website, dnd.wizards.com, and just go down to basic rules, and it's a free PDF. It is sort of the minimum amount of the game that you would need to play. It doesn't have a lot of the options that are in the game, but it has quite a bit. It's a 180-page PDF. So there's quite a bit of content in here for free, and this is plenty to get you started playing the game. Okay, so get that, and also get character sheets, right? So again, type in D&D character sheet, go to the Wizards website, and just right here, 5th edition character sheet. That 5th edition is the current version of the game as of me recording this video in September 2022. All right, so grab the character sheet. This video is not going to delve into creating a character. You can follow the basic rules. You can follow the player's handbook. Right at the very beginning, it gives you the basics of how to make your characters. That really will be its own other video, could be its own other video. I've gone ahead and just made a quick first level elf wizard here. And so I've already filled in this character sheet here, and I'll just use this for some quick examples. Okay, so let me get into just the basics of how to play the game. All right, so what you need to do first as the DM, okay, is you need to create some sort of scenario, some sort of adventure, a quest, a plot, anything. You could just think of it in your mind. I recommend making some notes. Don't go overboard, but just make, a few notes on, I like to use Google Docs, but you could use whatever you want to use, a cheap $1 spiral notebook. Just make some basic notes, some basic concepts, prepare just a little bit of what is going to happen. Maybe you have an idea for a short adventure. Maybe you like something from a movie or a series or a book or a game or a comic, and you want to use that as your inspiration. Maybe you just flip through the monster manual and you read the lore sections of a monster that you like, and that gives you some ideas. Whatever it is, just come up with this basic scenario for where are the characters, what's going on, what's the storyline, what's the objective. Just get a basic scenario in mind. Your job as the DM is that you are going to lay the scene. You are going to set the stage. You're going to describe where the characters are, what they see, what they hear, what's going on around them. And then they act. The players have their characters act and explore and investigate and do whatever they want to do. And then you, again, tell them, okay, well, this is the reaction in the environment, or with a non-player character, or with the monster. You describe how that plays out. Again, you're describing what they see and what they hear. You're narrating, you're storytelling, and you're also sort of refereeing. But the beauty of the game is that it's this back and forth cooperative storytelling. Okay, so you've got the scenario in your mind. Now, let's talk about DC, which means difficulty class. Okay, so like I mentioned, whenever a character or monster or NPC, for that matter, attempts something that is some kind of challenge or difficulty, you're going to be rolling that D20, the 20-sided die, hoping to roll high and trying to hit this DC number. The basic guidelines of it are going to go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. DCs do not have to be just multiples of 5, okay? But that is the guidelines we can go by, right? So we can consider 5 to be very easy. And I mean very, very extremely, we'll call this extremely easy. Okay, a DC of 5 is extremely easy. It's almost no challenge. A DC of 10 is easy. A DC of 15 we'll call moderate. A DC of 20 we'll call hard. 25, very hard. 30 we'll call extreme, or maybe we'd call it nearly impossible. So you can use this as your guidelines. Let's say in the early parts of the adventure, the characters have left a town. They're traveling into the wilderness, trying to get to a dungeon. Okay, so chapter 1 or chapter 2 of your short adventure here is the wilderness travel portion. Classic fantasy trope. The characters come to a river. The river has fast-moving water. There we go. There's a challenge. So again, you as the dungeon master, you lay the scene, you describe it as detailed or as simple as you want. You all have traveled beyond the farmlands and the meadows, and you've gotten far enough away from the city that it's starting to get pretty wild. Maybe it's close to a forest, and you come to a river, and you need to get across this river in order to reach your destination. The river has fast-flowing water and some rocks. Then you wait. Or you can even ask, what do you do? Whatever. Put the ball in the player's court now. Maybe they'll ask you questions like, oh, how far across the river is it? Is it, how far across to the other side? Is the water clear? Is it murky? Do I see any creatures in the water? Are there rocks? They're going to ask you questions, and maybe you have some notes about the location. Maybe you just have an idea in your mind. Maybe you're just making stuff up on the fly. Maybe you're rolling on a random table or a random generator you found somewhere. However you want to do it. It's your game. As the dungeon master, you have a lot of creative power, and that's an amazing thing. But you want to use that power wisely and to the benefit of the entire group. You want everybody to be engaged and feeling the thrill of it all. Okay, so you describe that they've come to a river, and maybe they ask you some questions. Okay, now I don't recommend just literally saying this number. Let's say in your notes you put this: fast moving river DC 15. Okay, that is a note's enough. Fast moving river DC 15. I don't recommend literally saying this river is DC 15 to swim. That kind of kills the magic. That kills the immersion of it, right? But you can describe what, in your mind, a moderate challenge river is. So maybe you'll say, okay, you look at the river, the water is fast flowing, there are some rocks, but it's not rapids. It's not it doesn't look hopeless and just extremely deadly. And the river is not a massive, wide river. So there you kind of describe in words that it seems like this could be a challenge to swim across, but a strong swimmer should be able to do it. Okay? So the character is going to roll something. In this case, we're going to choose athletics. Let's go to my character sheet. A character has these 6 ability scores: strength for muscular power, dexterity for agility, reflexes, hand-eye coordination, constitution for physical toughness and health, overall health, intelligence for cognition, knowledge, reasoning ability, wisdom for intuition, judgment, perceptiveness, willpower, and charisma for force of personality. Okay, so swimming is under strength, and specifically it's the skill athletics. There are actually 2 different versions of the 5th edition character sheet. I'm using the original version here, where it lists all of these skills alphabetically. Have I zoomed in enough? Let me zoom in one more tick here. Okay, So alphabetical, strength, athletics. Now the wizard here has a low strength. The score is 8. The modifier is -1. That -1, that's what's going into the D20 roll. There's also a proficiency bonus. Starting at level 1, it's +2. The first few levels, your proficiency bonus is +2. So characters are proficient at some things, but nobody's proficient at everything. Again, I'm not going to go through character creation because that really should be its own other video. But you'll see these little bubbles ticked or filled in for the saving throws and the skills that this wizard character is proficient in. Okay, so the character is not proficient in athletics. We're not adding in that +2. So it's just basically the raw strength modifier of -1. So that's not good because you're rolling the D20 -1 for athletics, which is just the raw strength, and trying to hit a 15. Yeah. So, I mean, D20 -1, the possible range of results there are 0 to 19. So that wizard's going to have a difficult time. So let's say the wizard rolls and rolls well, rolls high on the dice and gets a 17. Okay. So okay, the wizard has met the DC. You're trying to hit that number or higher. The higher, the better. And you can get creative with your descriptions. If the character rolls well over 5 or 10 over, you can say how extremely well they did. Or if they hit it right on, you can say how they struggle and barely make it across. Let's say the wizard rolls very high and gets a 17. So you can describe the character is swimming across. He feels worried for a moment. The water is pretty strong. He doesn't know if he's going to make it, but he pulls through and reaches the other side, sopping wet and breathing hard. If he just misses it, maybe he almost succeeds and then he just stalls out and doesn't even get very far, just makes it, a few feet, and then panics and has to come back. Or if he rolls like 5, he just reaches like a 10 or less. Maybe he gets out a little ways and then starts to drown, or maybe the currents smack him into a rock and he takes a little bit of damage, or something bad happens. Maybe the other party members need to try to save him, try to throw a rope out there, or someone tries to swim out. So the wizard is trying to hit this number. And again, this is the core of the usage of the skills, of the ability scores that you can just do for everything in the game, right? You want to climb that giant boulder. Well, it's fairly smooth. It doesn't have a lot of grip on it. So maybe that's DC 20. Again, I don't recommend telling the DC number to the players. You want to be as immersive as possible. The focus needs to be this balance of storytelling and game mechanics. And personally, I recommend storytelling first and foremost. But you can say, the boulder is humongous. It's pretty smooth. There's not a lot of grip. There's not a lot of handholds on it. And then you've got in your notes or in your mind that it's DC 20 and maybe a character tries that. There are always a variety of solutions to any given challenge or situation. And again, your job as the DM is not so much to tell the players this is what you have to do, but rather let them decide what they want to do. And, they roll and you narrate and describe the results of those rolls. So you should be encouraging or facilitating of the creative solutions that the players try to come up with. Sometimes they're wacky solutions and they do crazy things within reason. It's not reasonable for a player to say, well, actually, my character is the richest prince in the world, and I have the most powerful legendary magic staff and the most powerful sword in the whole universe. So that's not reasonable, especially at a low level of the game. There's guidelines in the player's handbook in terms of like what abilities you have and what equipment you're starting off with. If you've played role-playing video games before, you know what this is all about. What else can I talk about? Let's talk about AC, which is similar to DC. All right, so AC, Back in Black, AC/DC we're talking about here. Armor class, okay? Armor class is for attacks. So the DC are for the saving throws and the ability checks, right? So for saving throws and ability checks. What we just did there, that scenario with the river that I described, that was an ability check. Saving throw is more like some effect comes upon you suddenly and you have to quickly react to avoid it or mitigate the harmful effects. An example would be an enemy mage casts a burning hands spell and suddenly there's this blast of fire whipping all around you and you make a dexterity saving throw to try to angle your body or roll with it, or it's your, how quick are your reflexes. And if you fail, you're taking the full damage of that. And if you succeed, you're taking half damage as you did something to mitigate it. Another example is you get poisoned and you make a constitution saving throw to try to resist the effects of the poison to lessen it. So armor class, AC, is similar to DC. It's basically the same thing, but it's for attacks. All right, so when you roll an ability check, you're trying to hit the DC or higher. When you're rolling a saving throw, you're trying to hit the DC or higher. When you're rolling an attack, when you're making an attack roll, you're trying to hit the AC or higher. So, for example, the wizard here has a dagger of +5 attack bonus. You can also call that +5 to hit. Same thing. What that is composed of is the proficiency bonus, because the wizard is proficient with daggers, and the dexterity bonus, because with daggers you can attack using either strength or dexterity. You can use, brute power, or you can use finesse. And then if you do hit, then you're rolling the damage. So let's go to Goblin here in the basic rules. Nope, that's not the right page. There we go. Let's go to Goblin. I'll zoom this in. All right. So this is what the Dungeon Master would see for a Goblin enemy. All laid out in a really easy to follow stat block. So here we see armor class 15. Yep, the Goblin has leather armor, a shield, and a dexterity bonus of +2. Just to restate the point, I don't recommend that you, the DM, literally say, okay, you're attacking the Goblin, the armor class is 15. That pulls people out of the immersive, engrossing storytelling and just makes them think about numbers and math. Even though the numbers and math are crucial, things depend on that. Try to keep things engaged and interesting. You can describe this, though. You can say the Goblin is wearing some soiled leather armor, has a basic shield strapped to its arm, and it seems to be a nimble creature, a fast creature, an agile creature. And so that lets the player know, okay, so this thing is going to have some kind of armor class. It doesn't sound like it's extremely difficult to hit, but they're going to know there's a bit of a challenge to this. This is the number the character's trying to hit with an attack. So the dagger, usually wizards are not right up front attacking in melee, but whatever, this will serve. Actually, let's do longbow. How about that? The wizard, it's an elf wizard, so due to the elf race, he's proficient with the longbow. So he is going to shoot an arrow at a distance, again with a +5 to hit. Dexterity for the range attacks, like the hand-eye coordination, and is proficient, so +5. The character rolls, the player, on behalf of the character, rolls a d20. Let's say the player rolls a 10, has the +5. you don't want to really focus so much on what you rolled on the die. I mean, people do sometimes, especially if you roll really high or really low. But the important information that the Dungeon Master needs is that total. What's the result? You don't want to say, I rolled a 10 on my d20, and I've got +5, so blah, blah, blah. That's wasting everybody's time. Just say 15, or I got a 15. I shoot my longbow at the goblin, 15. That's a nice, efficient way to say it. And then the DM says, okay, the arrow strikes the goblin. Then the character rolls the damage, rolls a d8 +3 for that dexterity bonus. And as you can see, a goblin has a mere 7 hit points. Goblins are quite weak. So d8 +3, the chances of that killing the goblin in one shot are pretty high. Just a goblin, right? And then the same goes when it's the goblin's turn. Yeah, next is the goblin's turn. It let's say the wizard didn't hit. Rolled lower than 15. The arrow buzzes past the goblin's head, does not strike it. And then the goblin in return fires a short bow, shoots a short bow, or maybe the goblin is quick enough to get right up in melee and attacks with its scimitar. And so the goblin attacks. It's got a +4 to hit. Roll the d20. You, the DM, roll the d20. Let's say you got a 16 +4. Okay, so you say 20. The goblin swings, it slashes at you with its scimitar. 20, or 20 to hit, or it got a 20. The armor class of our wizard. Well, the wizard is wearing a wizard's robe, which gives you nothing. AC has a base of 10. That's where it all starts. It's 10, then you add things on top of that, like armor or dexterity score. It depends how the character is built. So the wizard just has a robe, which is nothing, and then a dexterity of +3. So it's just a static 13 number. The goblin got, what did I say? 16 +4, got 20. So the goblin slashes the wizard. The scimitar does 1d6 +2. The d6 is the scimitar's damage die, and the 2 is the dexterity bonus. That's what that's coming from. Again, it's a finesse weapon. So the goblin hits. This number here, that is the average amount. I don't actually know any DMs that do this, that just, instead of rolling the damage, that they just always deal the average amount. That's boring. Everyone wants to roll dice. But it can be helpful to know what the average is. So you can ignore the average and just roll the actual roll, right? So you roll that, and let's say you do roll a 3 on the d6, so you deal 5 damage, and our beloved wizard, who at first level just has 7 hit points, goes down to 2. And, well, wizards at first level, they are extremely fragile. Okay, so that's it. That's the basics. You're ready to play D&D. Like, just with that, you can play the game. That covers so much. Now, within the different attacks and spells and skills and class features and all that, there are lots of different options, lots of things you can do, things that give you additional benefits or things that give you additional hindrances. But with what I've just described there, that is plenty enough to start playing Dungeons and Dragons. So I want to encourage you really to stop stalling out and just thinking about it and just dive in. Grab your dice, grab the basic rules and the character sheets, or go ahead and get the books, whatever you want to do. Get your friends together and say, hey, let's just play some D&D. And yeah, you'll fumble through it, but you're going to have a great time fumbling through it, and you're going to learn as you go. And once you start playing for, a few months or so, a couple months of playing regularly, you start getting the hang of it. And then a little bit down the road, then you really get into the flow, and eventually a lot of this stuff just becomes second nature. Like you don't really have to be looking things up or thinking so much about it. You focus more on the tactics and the storytelling and all that. So that's it. I think I'll wrap it up there. If there are additional elements of the game, aspects of the game that you would like to see me do a video like this for, where I just do a quick walkthrough, please let me know in the comments. If you'd like to see more videos of this format, please do. I will be creating a tutorial adventure aimed at new Dungeon Masters very soon, so be on the lookout for that. Once that comes out, I'll go ahead and just put the link here at the end of this video too. So that'll be coming in the near future. I'll make the video, and I'll also, I think I'll also just put out the adventure for free, make it a free thing that anyone can download, and I look forward to that. So thanks for watching, and may your adventures be many.